Vietnam was once a nation scarred by war and poverty. Decades ago, millions struggled to survive on less than $1 a day. Today, Vietnam stands as one of the fastest-growing economies in the world. Real gross domestic product per capita soared from $436 in 1986 to nearly $4,300 by 2023. Extreme poverty plummeted from 34% in 1992 to just 1% in 2022. How did Vietnam achieve this? The answer lies in a bold economic experiment called Đói Moi, launched in 1986. These reforms turned a centrally planned, isolated economy into a global powerhouse. This documentary explores why Vietnam's economic model ranks among the best in Asia, driving curiosity about a nation that rose from ashes to prosperity. Picture Vietnam in the early 1980s. The country was reeling from decades of conflict, including the Vietnam War. The economy was agrarian, with most people tied to subsistence farming. A centrally planned system controlled every aspect of production. Factories were inefficient, and trade was nearly non-existent. The World Bank labeled Vietnam one of the poorest nations on earth. Farmers could not sell crops freely, and businesses faced strict state control. Isolation from global markets left Vietnam stagnant. People faced hunger, and opportunities were scarce. This was the backdrop for a radical shift. The government realized change was essential to survive. In 1986, Vietnam launched Đói Moi, meaning renovation. Leaders introduced private ownership of land and businesses. They deregulated prices, allowing markets to set costs. Trade barriers fell, inviting foreign investment. State-owned enterprises, once the backbone of the economy, were restructured. These changes were cautious but deliberate. The government aimed to open Vietnam to the world while maintaining stability. By the late 1980s, farmers could sell crops on global markets. Entrepreneurs started small businesses. Foreign firms noticed Vietnam's potential. The reforms sparked a revolution. Over 30,000 private businesses emerged by the late 1990s, laying the foundation for growth. Vietnam's leaders knew global connections were vital. In 1994, the country normalized relations with the United States, ending years of isolation. A year later, Vietnam joined the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, gaining access to regional markets. By 2007, membership in the World Trade Organization marked a milestone. These steps embedded Vietnam in global commerce. Factories sprang up, producing goods for export. Farmers sold rice and coffee worldwide. Workers found jobs in manufacturing. The economy grew at an astonishing 8% annually from 1990 to 1997. Vietnam was no longer a backwater. It was a rising star, catching the world's attention. Vietnam's growth has been relentless. Since Đói Moi, the economy expanded by 5 to 7% each year on average. In the 1990s and 2000s, growth often hit 7.5%. By 2008, Vietnam achieved lower middle income status, a remarkable leap. The global financial crisis of 2008-2009 slowed growth to 5 to 6%, but recovery was swift. Through the 2010s, Vietnam outpaced most neighbors, including many emerging economies outside Asia. Between 2000 and 2020, only China's growth rate in East Asia surpassed Vietnam. Even during the COVID-19 pandemic, when global economies shrank, Vietnam grew by 2.6% in 2020. By 2022, growth rebounded to 8%, fueled by a post-pandemic export boom. This consistency sets Vietnam apart. Fast forward to 2024. Vietnam's economy grew by 7.09%, surpassing every large economy worldwide. The fourth quarter alone saw 7.55% growth, the fastest in Southeast Asia. Gross domestic product reached $476 billion, up from $430 billion in 2023. Vietnam led the Association of Southeast Asian Nations' 6 largest economies, outpacing the Philippines at 5.6% and Malaysia at 5.1%. This made Vietnam the fourth largest economy in Southeast Asia. What drove this success? Booming exports, robust manufacturing, and surging foreign investment tell the story. Vietnam's model continues to shine, raising questions about how it sustains such momentum. Vietnam's export machine is a global marvel. In 2024, exports reached $405.5 billion, a 14.3% increase from the previous year. Imports totaled $380.8 billion, yielding a $24.8 billion trade surplus. Smartphones, electronics, garments, footwear, machinery, and agricultural products dominate exports. Electronics and phones alone form a massive share. Samsung, a key player, accounted for 15% of exports in the first 7 months of 2024. Vietnam ranks among Asia's largest exporters, with goods reaching markets worldwide. This export led Model ties Vietnam to global supply chains. Companies like LG, Intel, Panasonic, and Foxconn, which produces for Apple, have built factories in Vietnam. Competitive labor costs and trade access draw them from China, fueling curiosity about Vietnam's appeal. Foreign direct investment pours into Vietnam. In 2024, inflows hit $25.35 billion, up 9.4% from the prior year. Manufacturing and processing attracted $20.2 billion, or 64.4% of the total. Investors from Singapore, South Korea, Japan, and Association of Southeast Asian Nations countries lead the way. In 2023, total foreign direct investment reached $36.6 billion, a 32.1% jump. Why does Vietnam attract such capital? Stable policies, skilled workers, and strong infrastructure play a role. 80% of 2024's foreign direct investment went to regions with advanced infrastructure and streamlined regulations. This inflow drives factory growth, creates jobs, and boosts incomes, making Vietnam a model for others. Manufacturing powers Vietnam's economy. It contributes over 20% of gross domestic product, earning praise as the nucleus of growth. Electronics, semiconductors, garments, furniture, and automotive sectors thrive. Major firms like Samsung and Intel operate massive factories. In 2024, manufacturing attracted the lion's share of foreign direct investment. This sector employs millions, many of whom left subsistence farming for better-paying jobs. As agriculture's share of gross domestic product shrank, industry and services expanded. This structural shift mirrors classic economic modernization. Cities like Ho Chi Minh City and Hanoi buzz with factory activity, sparking interest in Vietnam's industrial rise. Vietnam's infrastructure supports its export machine. Decades of investment transformed the country. Nearly 100% of the population now has electricity access. Major ports, like Hai Phong and Da Nang, handle massive container ships. Ho Chi Minh City's deepwater ports are global hubs. Dozens of industrial parks offer roads, water, and power. Urban highways, airports, and metro lines connect manufacturing centers. Between 1993 and 2020, rural access to clean water rose from 17% to 51%. Transportation links multiplied, cutting costs for businesses. These improvements make Vietnam efficient, enabling factories to ship goods quickly. The World Bank credits infrastructure for Vietnam's competitiveness, prompting questions about how it funds such projects. Vietnam's leaders prioritize stability. Inflation stays low, often between 3 and 4%. In 2024, consumer price inflation remained in the mid-single digits. Public debt is manageable compared to peers. The currency, the dong, remains competitive, thanks to careful interventions by the State Bank of Vietnam. This prevents the rapid inflation or debt crises seen in some fast-growing economies. Transparent customs procedures and digital government services streamline business. Vietnam climbed dozens of places in the World Bank's Ease of Doing Business rankings, from 104th in 2007 to 68th in 2017. Anti-corruption reforms strengthen key sectors. Credit rating agencies view Vietnam favorably, boosting investor confidence. This stability underpins growth, making Vietnam a case study in prudent management. Vietnam's growth translates into human progress. Extreme poverty, defined as living on less than $3.65 a day, fell from 34% in 1992 to 1% in 2022. Between 1993 and 2014, 40 million people escaped poverty. In 1993, 80% lived in poverty. By 2023, only 4% did. Higher incomes from manufacturing and services fuel consumption. Urban growth creates opportunities. Education and healthcare access improve. The World Bank calls Vietnam's poverty reduction transformative, achieved in a single generation. This success story captivates audiences, highlighting the human side of economic policy. Vietnam's model is not flawless. Challenges like corruption and regulatory hurdles persist. Environmental concerns arise from rapid industrialization. Yet, the government addresses these issues with reforms. The bigger question is whether Vietnam can sustain this pace. Can it climb to high-income status? Will global trade shifts affect its export model? These uncertainties add intrigue, inviting viewers to ponder Vietnam's future. Vietnam's economic model dazzles for a reason. Decades of high, stable growth lifted millions from poverty. Exports and manufacturing drive progress, fueled by foreign investment and infrastructure. Stable policies and global integration cement Vietnam's place in world markets. In 2024, 7.09% growth made Vietnam a leader in Asia. Comparative data show Vietnam outpacing peers, setting records for advancement. From a war-torn nation to a middle-income economy, Vietnam proves thoughtful policy can work wonders. Its story inspires curiosity about what lies ahead. What do you think about Vietnam's rise?